29. Welcome back to Term 4, Week 1. Yes, it's me, Mr. Patios. I'm back just for this week only, just quickly wrapping up a few things with you. So I want to start off today with this lesson talking about understanding your pay. And I want to paint a bit of a picture for you why this is so important. So if we go back to last year, in January and February last year, Wesfarmers, who's a parent company who own Bunnings, Kmart, Target, Catch, Officeworks, Geeks2U, you can see that written there, Coles, and another group called the Super Retail Group who owns Super Cheap and Rebel and all those other brands, they all put their hand up and said, hey, look, we didn't pay our employees correctly over the last 12 to 18 months, and we need to go back and rectify that and change that. So, it's important. Like, you've got big companies like you'd expect companies like Coles and Bunnings and Kmart, Officeworks, companies that are, big national companies to make sure that they've got their systems right. And they've said that they've made mistakes. If we look at a couple of bigger examples, back in 2019, we'll start here on the left, George Columbaris, his company underpaid their employees, which means didn't pay them the correct wages. And that totaled to $7.8 million. Shock. $7.8 million that he didn't pay his employees. Over here on the right, the Woolworths Group, well, if you thought $7.8 million was bad, they underpaid their employees by $300 million. All right? Super important. This, people just trusted these companies to pay them the correct thing, and they were underpaid. They didn't get paid enough. And if we go through this a bit more, the Fair Work Ombudsman, who's the Fair Work Commission, is someone who's in charge of helping, everyday Australians. If a business has done you wrong, or your employee is not paying you correctly, you can go to them and they can look into that investigation for you. In 2018, the financial year 2018-19, their annual report stated, and now let's just look at this, stated $40 million in underpaid wages for 18,000 employees. Now, if we think about that, $40 million over 18, that means if we average it out, each person did not get paid $2,222. That's how much money they lost in one financial year, just in that year. And PricewaterhouseCoopers, who is another financial firm who do a lot of investigations, they estimate that 13% of the Australian workforce, a pretty significant chunk, are underpaid an approximation of $1.35 billion a year. So, that's a guess, it's an estimated guess, but that's 13% is a fair chunk of the workforce, and 1.35 billion, that's a significant amount of money for people to not get paid. So the point of me describing this to you is it's very important to know your rights, to know how much I should be getting paid, and to regularly check that you are getting paid that. And how do we do that? So let's go on. So what is a payslip? So if you wanted to, you could follow that link there up the top, and that takes you to the Fair Work website. And here they describe what should be on a payslip. So every single time that you get paid, you must get a payslip. If you don't, your employer, your boss, is doing the wrong thing. And there are certain elements, I'm not going to go through all these elements, that must be on your payslip. Some important one is your name, your employer's name, how much you should be getting paid an hour from your employer. Now, over here on the right, this little link here, you can go to the Fair Work website and you can look up an industry, you can look up what you should be getting if you're a casual employee who works at McDonald's and you are 15 years of age. You can look that up and see what you should be getting paid and make sure that they're equivalent on your payslip. Right? It should tell you how many hours you've worked and the total amount of pay at those hours. All right. So if you earn $12 an hour for 12 hours, they should say somewhere that you've got paid $144 there. Right? Any other extras? They also need to list your tax, They also need to list things like common deductions that people have taken out of their pay. So instead of coming out of your bank account, some people choose to have their health insurance or union fees, or they might voluntarily add more to their super, their common deductions. Okay, all these things should be found on your payslip. I would like you to read through that in a bit more detail after you finish watching this video. All right, and at the end of that, on your payslip, you'll have this thing that's called net pay. And your net pay is the amount of money that your employer, that's the amount they put into your bank account. I gave you that example, 12 hours at $12 an hour is $144. That's your gross pay, that's everything you earn. But out of that $144 comes tax. You know, you might have got a loan, you might be paying health insurance, all that comes out, that $144. And whatever is left over from that, that's what you get, that's your net pay. Have a quick watch of that 45-second video that explains it a bit better. So let's go through, look at a payslip, look at some details and case slips. So here we have a pay advice for Leonard Euler from Pi Industries. So we can see straight away over here on the right, it's the name of the company and the company's Australian business number. We can see it has the employee's name. It has the employee's pay detail. That's his company number. It tells you the time frame. So in the 2 weeks from the 17th of September to the 30th of September, that's what this pay week, this pay cycle covers. And the 30th of September is the day that Euler got paid. And if we scroll on just a little bit further, you can see that there's a description, his fortnightly earnings. He's getting paid $54.36 an hour, worked 76 hours, and that totals to $4,131.36. And there are the start and end dates of his employment. Now, this amount here, that is his gross earnings. Right? Underneath that, we can start to see, we can have now our deductions. We have income tax, health insurance, Mansour membership, all right, Pi, Mansour Mathematics Association of New South Wales, Euler's part of that. And you can see over here on the right, that there is the amount of money that has been taken away from his pay. So we can see that before the pay lands in his bank account, Euler here is losing $1,249.66 in deductions to these specific detailed outlined items. As we go through on our payslip, we can see here that Pi Industries has paid $392.48 into Euler's superannuation fund for him, and that is compulsory for every single Australian employee. And over here, down the bottom right, here we have our earnings summary. Now, there are two columns here. We have this pay, which only refers to these two pay cycles, or this one pay cycle, sorry. And we have this thing that's called YTD, that stands for year to date. And that's a summary of everything in the current financial year. So that would be from the 1st of July, and what year was this? 20. So that's everything from the 1st of July 2020, because remember our financial year goes from July through to June the following year. So this $28,000 or almost $29,000, Euler's been paid $29,000 since the start of January as gross earnings. Okay, we can see there's no pre-tax deductions, nothing comes out before tax. The taxable gross, so this is the income that they calculate tax on. Now we can see there's some blanks that we needed to fill in. So let's jump in and fill these blanks. What was the total tax that Euler had to pay? If we jump up here, it was $1,060. So we put $1,060 there. All right. The next part is, what are the post-tax deductions? So what we're looking for are really just the, oh, that was so big. Let's change that down. We're just looking for these two amounts here. When we're talking about the deductions, we've already mentioned the tax. So we don't need to include the tax again. So if we add those two figures together, we get $189.66. Now, Euler's net pay is just going to be $4,000 minus those two amounts. So if we get our calculators out and figure that out, we will get his total net pay. So Euler's net pay, the amount that goes into his bank account, is $2,881.70. That's how much went into his bank account this pay period. And over on the right, since the start of July, Euler has had $21,255 put into his bank account from Pi Industries, his employer. You can see that's different to that number up there. So the difference between 28,000 and 21,000 is the total deductions taken away from his pay for that period. All right, so remember that net pay is just gross pay minus our deductions. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. Really important that if you have a job, you are regularly checking your payslip. This is how Wesfarmers, Coles, Supercheap Auto, Rebel, the George Coronavirus people, the Woolworth people, this is how people found out that they weren't getting paid properly. They checked their payslips. They looked at that Fair Work website and said, actually, I should be getting this. I'm actually getting this. That's not right. They rang Fair Work. Fair Work investigated, and those companies were found out. And they had to then go back and repay their employees all that money. So it's super important that we're able to understand our payslips, as well as understanding the difference between our gross income, which is everything that we earn, and then our net income or our net pay, which is what actually lands in our bank account after all our tax and other deductions are taken away. So, your work for this week, there's a worksheet below on this document. You need to complete that. And if once you've done that, if you still have time, hit up the 10 quick questions. And as always, you know, and correct your work from the solutions. If you have made a mistake, go back and fix up any errors so that your working makes sense to get the correct answer. Take a photo and submit it via Canvas, all by Friday, October 8th at 3 p.m. All right, guys, until next lesson, have a great one.